no. I think we're done with the Wraith. I just can't use the Wraith anymore. Anyway, greetings. I'm actually really iffy about the Wraith and his whole method of gameplay. I can't decide whether I really like it or whether I really hate it, because it's just so divided. The opinions are just so divided on this. I mean, some people claim that it's really overpowered, some people claim that it really isn't and it's just a fragile glass cannon. But I'm of the opinion that it is kind of, yeah, it's kind of overpowered, in the sense that to beat it you really do need to have a team that communicates with each other and they know what they're doing and everything. I mean, with the Goliath, if you have two, three good players, I suppose you could sort of like beat it. And again, with the Kraken, I suppose you could sort of make a case that it isn't as frustrating to play against. Whereas with the Wraith, if you have just one good player and you have a junk trapper or a junk medic, then it just makes the whole gameplay very frustrating. I mean, currently what I'm doing is I'm playing as the Wraith, and I pretty much invested most of my points in this move right here, which is part of the problem that people have with the Wraith, but I'll get into that later. But yeah, I think the fundamental archetype of the Wraith is fine. The Wraith is always going to be the rogue trickster sort of type, where you have the Goliath, which is going to be your bruiser. You know, it can take a lot of damage, it can do a lot of damage sort of type, and your Kraken is going to be your magic, long range, that sort of type. And I can forgive the Wraith for that, but as you can see, there's only really two moves that you really need to use if you're going to go up against random people, and that's Decoy and Supernova. And to be honest with you, it makes for a very brain dead and not entirely fun game experience. I pretty much had a gameplay, I didn't have it saved, but I pretty much went up against a game, Wraith, that kept exploiting some of these moves. So moves such as Decoy and Supernova, and the Warp Blast. Yeah, every time we captured them, all they kept doing was using their traversal moves and, you know, dashing to the very highest point that they can get, using their Supernova, using their Warp Blast and other abilities to actually just stay there. And yeah, I don't know why I keep trying to bounce this thing. Okay, but yeah, as I was saying, with the Supernova, it's very frustrating because it hits hard and it hits quickly. Now, I think it's not that hard to get out of. I've actually, every time the Wraith puts up a Supernova, I'm never truly worried about it, but it is still frustrating. And I do actually hear in a later patch that they are actually going to cut down the time of the Supernova by 50%, so we'll see if that actually has an effect on it. As for the Decoy, which is this right here, that's one of the things that I feel people have a problem with, and what I kind of have a problem with. Now, the Decoy has a few tells that you can sort of tell is a decoy. If you attack the Decoy, it flickers, and usually if the Wraith hides behind an object and then comes straight out attacking you straight away, then yeah, it's more than likely that that Wraith is a decoy. But my problem with it is, if you're chasing after the Wraith and you can tell that it's a decoy, surely you should be, you know, kind of rewarded by that. Like, if you can see that the Wraith is sending out a decoy and the real Wraith is trying to get away, you should just be able to just ignore this decoy and just keep going and in pursuit of the real Wraith. But you can't, and this is the reason why that bothers me. You can't, because the decoy actually deals damage, and it deals quite a lot of it. I'm sure, you know, the decoy has to deal a bit of damage, otherwise it's pretty much just useless, because as soon as everyone can recognize what a decoy looks like, then there'd be no need for the Wraith to actually send out any decoys, because everyone will just recognize it straight away and just move it out. But as I said, the damage that the decoy can do just seems a bit, I don't know, disproportionate. And I don't know why I'm trying to pounce that sensor, but anyway, giving away my position. But yeah, I think with the decoy, it should be toned down a little bit. Obviously not so much that it's junk to actually use the decoy, but obviously not so, it shouldn't have so much damage that, you know, you can just send out a decoy every time you get domed and never ever have to fight. And I think he actually knew where I was, that's why he didn't continue to pursue me, because I think I actually get caught here. Could be wrong. Maybe he's just leading the rest of the hunters to me so they can dome me. I'm not intact. Or maybe he's just gone away. Huh. That's one of the things that I love about the Wraith, that its foliage hiding game is strong. Because of its low profile, you can just hide in these sort of bushes and they will never see a thing. I think in one gameplay I actually start off with a monster, which I didn't actually want to be a monster. It was actually set to my 5th preferred role. But and worst of all, the monster I got spawned into, I was actually in the middle of a game, the monster I got spawned into was a Wraith. And again, why am I trying to stealth pounce these sensors? But yeah, the monster I spawned into with a Wraith, and I was just so frustrated that, oh gosh, I have to be the Wraith again. But I just stayed in a bush and just waited out the entire game. I know it must have been frustrating for the hunters, but to be honest, I don't care. Yeah, where was I? So yeah, basically that's something that I really find annoying. People, when as soon as you dome the Wraith, they will just sort of like send out decoys, run to the other side of the dome, send out another decoy, and keep going back and forth, and you'll never actually see the Wraith again. Again, how much of that can be down to sort of like better teams, better teamwork? But I think with the Wraith, it's very frustrating to play against as a bunch of random players. With, like I said earlier, with the Kraken, with the Goliath, if you've got a couple of good players that know what they're doing, you can sort of like silently communicate, because each of you will know what you're doing in your role. Whereas if you're playing up against a Wraith, you really do need to play a particular way just so you don't get slaughtered by it. I mean, personally, the way I like to play against a Wraith is capture it as soon as possible and deal heavy damage to it. Deal heavy damage so you can permanently, you know, chip away at its health. And the other thing I'd have to say about the Wraith is if someone on your team's using the Lazarus, I made my feelings clear about Lazarus in a previous video, but I do not like Lazarus. But I feel against the Wraith, he does actually have a pretty decent advantage, I guess, because every time the Wraith divides and conquers and kills someone, you can pretty much use Lazarus to bring them back, and it will just make for a frustrating game for the Wraith player. Of course, this isn't the only thing that people would say makes the Wraith overpowered. There is actually something that I found out very recently, and I used it myself a couple of times just to see if it was really as broken as they say. But Oh boy, it really is. It really is. But the warp blast. People use the warp blast to pretty much move around because you get 3 boosts forwards. I don't think I do it here because, yeah, obviously I don't, because I don't actually have the warp blast. But you pretty much boost forward 3 times, use all your traversal stamina, send out a decoy, and then warp blast forward. Or you don't have to do the decoy thing, but you can just warp blast forward, and it just puts so much distance in between you and the pursuing hunters that it just hardly seems fair. It just seems like you could never actually capture it, and for me it kind of makes the whole Wraith thing a little bit overpowered. I mean, some would say, you know, it's balanced by the fact that it really has a small health pool, but to be honest with you, what use is a small health pool when its advantages are just so much better? Maybe that's just down to the whole archetype, as I said, the fact that the rogue is a very not the rogue, the Wraith is a very roguish, trickster-like monster, and that you do have to sort of sneak around and stuff. One thing I do actually like to do as a Wraith is evolve to stage 2 as soon as I can, because if I get caught in stage 1 I may as well just give up, because yeah, that's gonna take away too much health for my liking, and I just get to stage 2. However, I will very rarely evolve all the way to stage 3, simply because I do not want the hunters to camp at the power relay. If the hunters are camping at the power relay when I'm a Wraith, yeah, I don't feel confident enough that I will actually, you know, slaughter them all, especially when they've got their defenses set up. And yeah, at stage 2 there's still nothing for them to defend, so they still have to try and hunt me down, and to me that just works in my favor, because it means I can still get away, I can still move around, and the hunters will get frustrated obviously, because going up against a Wraith is frustrating when you can't actually find anything to kill. Heck, you can't even kill the wildlife because you're just giving free food for the Wraith. But yeah, as you can see, it's pretty much game over. I just armored up and lured the hunters to this spot, which is pretty decent because it means that the hunters have to use jet fuel to sort of get up to this high location, and then they can't really dodge my stealth pounces or anything like that. I just find it advantageous for me. But yeah, as you can see, as I said, with the Goliath and the Kraken, I don't mind going to stage 3. I won't all the time, but I don't mind going to stage 3, and if they're going to camp, well, that's fine, I can still handle it. But with the Wraith, no way. Let's stay at stage 2, I can still take them apart. As you can see, I pretty much did that here. I'm not saying that it was impressive or anything like that. I'm just playing a bunch of randoms who have no clue what to do, no idea of any teamwork, and I'm sure none of them are actually using microphones, so that is just so easy for me. Well, anyway, that's about it for this video. Take care of yourself and keep being you.